The world awoke on September 9, 2025, to a new reality. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon, millions of people across continents reached for their phones, only to be confronted by a barrage of urgent news alerts. The sense of normalcy that had greeted the day was shattered in an instant, replaced by confusion and disbelief. Doha, the glittering capital of Qatar, had long been a unique space in the turbulent Middle East. Its skyline, a testament to rapid modernization, stood as a beacon of stability amid a region often defined by conflict and uncertainty. It was a city of glass towers and quiet diplomacy, a place where enemies could meet. Here, behind closed doors, rival factions and world powers negotiated, seeking fragile truces and fleeting moments of understanding. This perception of inviolability, however, proved to be just that, a perception. Beneath the surface calm, the city was always a potential flashpoint, its neutrality both its strength and its vulnerability. In the pre-dawn hours, the roar of jet engines and the thunder of explosions ripped through the city's calm. The night sky was lit by sudden flashes, and the distant rumble of destruction echoed through empty streets. Israel had done the unthinkable, striking at the heart of Hamas's political leadership in Doha. The attack was swift, precise, and utterly unexpected, catching both residents and the international community off guard. This was not just another military operation, it was a profound statement. The world watched in stunned silence as the implications began to sink in. For years, Qatar provided a neutral ground, a necessary pressure valve for the region's most intractable conflicts. Its role as mediator was not just tolerated, but relied upon by adversaries who needed a safe space to talk. By hosting Hamas's political bureau, Doha played a risky but widely accepted role. It balanced on a diplomatic tightrope, offering sanctuary while maintaining open channels with the West and its neighbors. The strike on its soil was a direct challenge to this entire framework. Sirens wailed through the diplomatic quarter, and the sense of security that had defined Doha was replaced by fear and uncertainty. It signaled that, for Israel, the distinction between a political wing and a military one had evaporated. The message was clear. No one, and nowhere, was beyond reach. The shockwaves were immediate and global, a breach of sovereignty on a scale rarely seen. Newsrooms scrambled to make sense of the event, while governments convened emergency meetings. The action was audacious, a high-stakes gamble that risked unraveling decades of diplomatic architecture. The fragile trust that underpinned regional negotiations now hung by a thread. The message from Jerusalem was stark. There are no safe havens. The rules of engagement had changed, and the world was forced to take notice. The strike forced every nation to recalculate its position and reevaluate its assumptions about the limits of conflict. Allies and adversaries alike were left questioning their own security and the reliability of old alliances. The immediate questions were unsettling. What did this mean for Qatar's role as a mediator? Could the region's delicate balance survive such a shock, or was a new era of instability beginning? How would the Arab world respond? Would this act unite them in outrage or deepen existing divisions? The answers were far from clear. The world was now in uncharted territory, and the old maps were useless. As dawn broke over Doha, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same again. For decades, Qatar has walked a diplomatic tightrope with extraordinary skill, navigating a region fraught with tension and shifting alliances. It is a small nation with immense wealth and even greater ambition, using its resources to carve out a unique place on the world stage. Qatar spoke to everyone, maintaining strong ties with the United States, hosting the region's largest American military base, and acting as a reliable partner in Western security efforts. At the same time, it fostered connections with Iran and Hamas, opening channels that others refused to consider, and positioning itself as a rare bridge between adversaries. This balancing act was its signature foreign policy, allowing it to punch far above its weight and play a role in conflicts and negotiations that would otherwise be out of reach for such a small country. Doha became the indispensable capital of mediation, leveraging its natural gas wealth to build a global brand of influence and using its economic power to open doors in international diplomacy. This role was not without its critics. Neighbors and rivals accused Qatar of supporting terrorism, arguing that its open-door policy enabled dangerous actors to operate with impunity. Yet, Qatar persisted, arguing that communication was always preferable to conflict, and that dialogue, even with adversaries, was the only path to peace and stability in the region. The presence of Hamas's political office in Doha was the most visible and contentious aspect of this policy, drawing both international scrutiny and domestic debate. For Qatar, hosting the office enhanced its status as a key player, giving it leverage in negotiations and a seat at the table in critical regional discussions. The risk, however, was that it made Doha a target, both for those who opposed Hamas and for those who resented Qatar's growing influence. The Israeli strike has now called this entire strategy into question, shattering the illusion of safety and exposing the dangers of being a middleman in a volatile region. The act of providing a platform for dialogue has been reframed as providing a sanctuary for terrorists, with critics seizing the moment to demand a change in policy. The tightrope Qatar so carefully walked has snapped, leaving its leaders scrambling to reassess their options and their future role in the region. If it expels Hamas, it loses its primary leverage and its unique role as a mediator, potentially diminishing its influence on the world stage. If it allows Hamas to stay, it risks further Israeli action, international isolation, and condemnation from allies who once valued its mediation. The strike has exposed the profound vulnerability at the heart of Qatar's foreign policy, forcing the nation to confront the true cost of its ambition and the perils of being the region's indispensable middleman. The operation was a chilling display of modern military capability, a testament to the reach and precision of today's armed forces. Under the cover of darkness, every movement was calculated, every second accounted for, as elite units moved with silent efficiency. It unfolded in the dead of night, targeting a luxury villa complex in Doha, a place known more for its opulence and tranquility than for scenes of conflict. The city's quiet was shattered in an instant. This was not a random act of violence, it was a surgical strike meticulously planned over weeks, if not months. Every detail was scrutinized, every contingency considered. Israeli intelligence had pinpointed the exact location of a high-level meeting of Hamas's political bureau, using a combination of satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and on-the-ground assets. The targets were the group's most senior political leaders and strategists. Men who rarely gathered in one place, believing themselves safe behind layers of secrecy and security. Initial reports painted a picture of chaos and disbelief. Residents, jolted from their sleep, rushed into the streets, struggling to comprehend the sudden violence in their midst. The explosions were heard across the city, echoing through the night and initially mistaken for a gas leak or industrial accident. The reality was far more shocking. Emergency services found a scene of utter devastation. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and the acrid smell of smoke filling the air as they searched for survivors. The targeted villa was reduced to a smoldering crater, its luxurious facade obliterated in seconds, leaving only ruins and unanswered questions. Several top Hamas leaders were confirmed among the dead, their identities quickly circulating through international news outlets and intelligence channels. The strike had effectively decapitated the political wing in a single blow, leaving a leadership vacuum and sending shockwaves through the organization. The pandemonium was not just about physical destruction, it was about the destruction of an idea, that some places could remain above the fray, untouched by the world's conflicts. In that moment, the illusion of safety was shattered for all to see. From Israel's perspective, the strike on Doha was a necessary escalation. It represented a strategic shift, targeting Hamas's political leaders in Doha. Israeli leaders argued that the political leadership in Doha was not separate from the military command in Gaza. The new doctrine was simple: any Hamas leader involved in planning terror is a legitimate target. This doctrine of global reach was a dramatic departure from previous rules. The political bureau in Doha was seen as the brain of Hamas. By striking it, Israel aimed to create chaos and paralysis within Hamas. The timing was critical as ceasefire negotiations had stalled. Israel sent a brutal message: the time for talking is over. The strike was a signal that Israel was now operating under a new and aggressive set of rules. The diplomatic fallout from the Doha strike was severe. It threw international relations into disarray, forcing allies and adversaries to navigate a new landscape. For the United States, the situation was a diplomatic nightmare. The White House scrambled to condemn the violation of Qatari sovereignty while avoiding a public rupture with Israel. Across Europe, urgent statements called for restraint and a return to diplomacy. The reaction in the Arab world was a unified chorus of fury. The most immediate consequence was the collapse of the mediation framework. The world was left without a clear diplomatic path forward, scrambling for answers in a crisis that had become more dangerous and unpredictable. The Israeli strike on Doha may have killed the possibility of a negotiated ceasefire. Before the attack, diplomatic efforts were underway to broker an agreement. These talks were fragile but represented the only viable path away from conflict. The strike in Doha has blown that path to pieces. For Hamas, the assassination of its leaders is an unforgivable act of war. The organization's immediate response was a vow of unprecedented retaliation. Israel has signaled that it is no longer interested in the previous format of negotiations. The Israeli government's calculation seems to be that it can achieve its objectives more effectively through direct action. This new reality leaves the international community in a desperate position. The traditional tools of diplomacy have been rendered obsolete overnight. The conflict is now set on a course of pure escalation, with no diplomatic off-ramp in sight. The strike in Doha has sent tremors across the Middle East, threatening to upend the balance of power. The most immediate impact is on the Gulf Cooperation Council. The attack forces a moment of reckoning for Arab nations that have normalized relations with Israel. For Saudi Arabia, the situation is a complex strategic challenge. The Doha strike complicates the process of normalization with Israel. Iran and its proxies will see this moment as a strategic opportunity. The risk of a multi-front escalation increases dramatically. The crisis puts immense pressure on moderate Arab states like Egypt and Jordan. The delicate web of relationships that has helped contain the conflict is now fraying. The shifting sands of power are moving in a more volatile direction, pushing the region closer to a broader war. The Israeli strike in Doha is a harbinger of a new era of global conflict. It signifies a breakdown in the norms that have governed interactions for decades. The concept of a safe haven for political wings of militant groups has been dismantled. This action sets a precedent that other nations will notice. The battlefield is no longer geographically confined, it is global. This new era is defined by advanced technology and unprecedented risks. The strike forces us to confront a sobering reality about modern conflict. We are entering a period of geopolitical free-for-all, where the rules are being rewritten in real time. As the dust settles in Doha, we find ourselves in a profoundly altered world. The immediate future will be defined by a scramble to contain the fallout. The first order of business is to prevent a full-scale regional war. The United States will play a pivotal role, forced to use its leverage with Israel. In the medium term, we can expect a realignment of regional politics. Qatar's role as the go-to mediator is likely over. The Abraham Accords will enter a deep freeze. The region will likely become more polarized, divided into pro-Israel and pro-Iran camps. The hope for a lasting peace has now receded almost to the vanishing point. Navigating this post-Doha world will require a new kind of statesmanship.